Greetings. My name is Donnie Davis, and I'm at Georgia State University. I'm part of the Matheny Center for the Study of Stress, Trauma, and Resilience, which is housing this grant. And I'm really excited about the launch meeting coming up. I definitely want to thank Daryl for all his work coordinating the meeting, and also Daryl and Heather for their work coordinating the RFP competition. We wanted to thank you for sending such strong projects in, and we really are excited to have a chance to come together. People can share ideas. We can start to strengthen our friendships with each other. It's fun to do research. It's even more fun to do it in the context of strong relationships and strong friendships. And so everyone involved kind of on the grant planning side is excited to kind of see things come together. We spent a lot of time writing things and working over Zoom. But this is fun to have a chance to all come together in person and kind of get to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So we have a Substack page that we're going to use to put all of the key information for our meeting this weekend. We have a link to a Google Drive folder that will have all of the materials that people send, so like a schedule. If people send us slides that they're willing to share, we can put those all in there. So helpful links will be posted on this webpage. And then at the bottom, we'll include answers to frequently asked questions. So things like, how do I find the Hope Mobile when I get to the airport? Or how do I navigate around the hotel? All of these things are pretty easy, but we'll have any kinds of FAQ at the bottom of the webpage. Our main goal is not to barrage you with various emails that you have to keep track of, but we'll try to kind of aggregate all of the various things that you might need as you're kind of navigating the weekend. That'll kind of all be available on this one landing page. So when Josh and I kind of send out an email later on today, so it's Wednesday, you should be able to use this link to kind of see anything that we thought would end up being helpful. And if people send us questions, we'll continue to add things. And so it'll be a little bit of a living document, living webpage. So I wanted to say something briefly about our hope fors for the meeting. We have over 20 teams that will be coming together to talk about their work. And so I wanted to give some sense of the big picture. But more than anything, our goal is to have some time to develop and deepen professional friendships with each other. We're all doing work independently, and we've chosen your team because we trust you to do strong work and do the best you can and contribute to the goals of the larger grant. Nonetheless, I think there's an opportunity that the whole would be larger than the sum of its parts, because we have a chance to form relationships with each other, give each other feedback, share some of the things that we're thinking with, struggles or challenges that are fresh on our minds, talk about things that we're trying out. And so in order to really reach that potential, we're wanting people to have a chance to form new connections and new relationships, so that as you're doing the work on your project, there's a context for you to engage some of these professional friendships that either start this weekend or maybe would be continuing and deepening. So the good news is this isn't a culture that's just starting on this grant. Dr. Pete Hill will talk for a few minutes on the first night about the history of this project. But for now, I'll just say, this is almost 10 years worth of collaboration that's happened with some of the members of the larger team, and there's lots of new folks, but also continuity to some of the early projects that happened around 10 years ago. And so we already have a core group of people that believe in the value of interdisciplinary work, learning from other disciplines, and also the value of drawing from different cultures and subcultures as we're trying to advance this work on humility. We'll have a lot more to say about some of our hopes for the project at the launch meeting. But one thing I did want to say is we're really turning towards thinking about the health of the profession and the long-term sustainability. Do we have early career scholars getting involved that would potentially spend their careers on lines of work related to humility and intellectual humility? And what are the kinds of infrastructure and relational structures that would help support a long-term kind of body of research programs in this area? And so we really did choose teams that we thought would make a contribution to kind of that big picture goal. We're going to send out a very brief survey. We'd like to hear from you. What are your hopes for the project? And Josh, Daryl, and Heather and I want to kind of have some of those things fresh in our minds as we go into this weekend. We'd also like to hear if there are any kind of challenges or questions that you have as you kind of move from, the excitement of, yay, I hope I get a grant, yay, I got a grant, to, oh, wow, we're going to do this thing. As it kind of settles in, we'd like to hear some of the things that are on your mind as in terms of potential challenges. Let me say a little bit about the structure of our team. So Daryl and Heather are organizing the launch meeting, and they already organized the RFP competition. Josh is taking the lead on coordinating with the project leaders, and Pete is going to be heading up the closing meeting, and he also has staff that are supporting the project behind the scenes. And then my job, in addition to kind of helping to support different parts of the project and make sure they kind of fit together, is also any kind of problem solving related to budgets. And I'm responsible for kind of sending the reports to Templeton as we're progressing through the project. I should also mention two other Georgia State colleagues that helped with the grant writing and have important roles on this project. Dr. Ken Rice is the co-leader of the Matheny Center for the Study of Stress, Trauma, and Resilience, and so this grant is housed within that center. And he helped me with coming up with ideas for in-kind support for this project and also some of the methodological focus of the project. Dr. Rice is an expert in structural equation modeling, testing mediation, longitudinal designs. His primary research is on perfectionism, and we've been exploring potential links between intellectual humility and treating perfectionism. Ken is known for being the person you would go to if no one else knows the answer to stats or research design questions within our department. So it's easy to see his role on this project in terms of helping to think about how can we connect leaders of the various projects so that as early career professionals become interested in work on intellectual humility, how do we make use of that network so it supports new people coming into the field? Dr. DeBlair is the director of faculty affairs at Georgia State University, so she's in the provost's office, and so her primary job at Georgia State is supporting early and mid-career faculty, and so she's also helping to support the ways that we think about building a network. A third person I'll mention related to forming a professional network is Elise Choi. So she's going to take the lead on coordinating with the larger grant team how we can build structures kind of between the beginning meeting and the end meeting that would help make it easier for early career professionals to get involved. And she's also going to provide meetings and other types of supports for any early career folks that are involved on this specific project. So, as a part of the various teams that are funded through the grant. So we'll certainly talk more about some of the things we're thinking. But for now, just put a placeholder. If you are committed and passionate about supporting early career professionals, we would want you to reach out to us as soon as possible, because that's one of the things that we're attempting to do. Other than kind of deliver on our promises related to publications and other outlets, is we're looking for ways of building leverage across teams, so that we can not only build the scholarship in the field, but the relational structures that will help us kind of have a strong network moving forward. So that gives you a big picture of the team and some of the roles of different people on the team. I mentioned this earlier. This is not the beginning of this team. We actually have a progression of, there were 2 prior grants. One focused on measurement of intellectual humility. The second was focused on humility and leadership, and it wasn't as explicitly focused on intellectual humility, although that was a component. But the idea of that grant was to support a transition towards an applied grant. And then this third grant is the fruition of kind of the planning on those prior projects. So Dr. Pete Hill will talk more about just kind of the history of the project. But I will say, as we were writing the grant, and I imagine we could kind of share that grant narrative with folks so they could kind of see how we tried to handle this. A couple of big picture issues that were on reviewers' minds is, where are we on measurement? Are we at a position where we'd be ready to kind of capture changes in intellectual humility? And then the second bigger picture issue is, are we even ready to move towards interventions? And there are a variety of arguments of why it might not be a good idea to intervene or try to promote intellectual humility. So you may have other ideas, but those are at least a couple of fairly serious critiques or cautions that we had in mind as we were writing this grant. And so in some ways you'll see the logic of the proposal kind of aligns with an attempt to do something ambitious and not without critique. So a little bit about the structure of the project. We had 3 internal projects where we just said, look, here are 3 projects that we want to do, not too dissimilar from the project that you would have sent in. And then we also proposed an RFP that would distribute, $3.5 million to 17 projects is what we ended up funding. One was invited, and it specifically addressed a gap that we saw related to integration of humility and intellectual humility to handling tricky cultural situations that are arising in psychotherapy or other types of applied work. And then we funded 16 projects that are entirely new to us, and you'll hear about those this weekend. We read the proposals, but we're kind of still getting to know some of the goals and challenges of the projects that were funded in the RFP. So within the next month or so, we're going to try to get all of those projects added to our overall website. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is on our landing page, on the Substack page, we are going to list the outputs of the overall grant, and on Sunday, Josh will kind of go over some of the expectations of project leaders, but we attempted to kind of under-promise so that we would have a chance to overperform on our outputs. And it would be helpful to us if you'd go ahead and just look at what we committed to do to the Templeton Foundation. And then the last thing I'll say is Daryl was kind enough to put together some frequently asked questions, and we've posted those at the lower end of the Substack page for the launch meeting. And the short version is you'll be flying into a small airport, so we're mainly worried about 2 baton passes. One is, can you find Daryl's volunteers who are going to help get you from the airport to the hotel, and he kind of gives directions, but they'll be wearing a conference t-shirt, and so you'll go outside and kind of look for the Hope van and find someone, and they'll kind of get you to the next stop. So if there were a problem, what we want you to do is text or call Daryl. So he's the point of contact for any kinds of problems. And then the other thing I was going to say is the hotel's pretty small. So I'm kind of going over a screenshot of the map, but it's going to be pretty easy to navigate the different rooms. So once you get to the hotel, you'll get checked in. Daryl's put together kind of a welcome package, and it should be pretty easy to navigate once you get there. So mainly wanted to remind you, any kind of problems that you have, email or call or text Daryl Van Tongeren. He's our primary point of contact, and he'll kind of help you figure out next steps. So thank you for your attention. We're all looking forward to seeing you this weekend. Looking forward to a productive meeting. Also looking forward for time to strengthen relationships, talk about ideas related to the project, and also just to get to know each other better. We really never know what might come of some of these relationships, some of the new projects or ideas, and also just the friendships have the potential to last well beyond the time span of this grant.